Welcome to week 5. This week, we're going to talk about print awareness and concepts of print. When you pick up a book and sit down with your child, usually what we say is, I'm going to read you a story. So they have made an association that inside that book cover, there is a story that they're going to listen to. But print awareness and concepts of print, when taught and are intentional, helps a child to learn that that book is a story, yes, but that story is created by taking letters that we are learning about that are made into words, and that word is called print. And those words are put together to build sentences that become this story that you can tell and read and listen to. So it's more than just a story. It's an awareness that books are made up of actual words made from the letters that we are learning that create sentences, that create paragraphs, that create chapters that they can enjoy and listen to and build on their imagination and their higher level thinking. So that it's much more than just a story or a book. So this concept, along with parts of the book, which we're going to be talking about this week, has to be taught in repetition. It doesn't just come naturally. Naturally is picking up a book and listening to the story. But once your child understands that concept of print and the parts of a book, they'll have a better understanding of what that story is all about and how it is put together. So this week, we are going to really emphasize read, read, read. The activities are wonderful. They're supplements, and they help the child learn about words and letters and how to build that and strengthen that hand so they can become writers. But these concepts that we're all talking about can be told in a story. There's so much you can do with a book, and we're going to learn about that this week. Let's get started. I'm going to present the activities a little bit out of order from the platform, just because I want to do the ones that are new first. And since we are talking about concepts of print and parts of the book, I wanted to do that activity first. So I have a book, and when I introduce a book to class, one of the first things I talk about is the front cover. So we're going to talk about parts of the book in this lesson. And it's something every time you get a book out to read to your child, I want you to go ahead and be intentional about these words and this activity, because it's the repetition, the over and over of hearing these concepts that the child is going to learn it. And it's still difficult for many of them, because some of the books have an author and an illustrator. Some just have a person that does both jobs of the book. So we have to do it in repetition. We have to do it all the time. Plus, it's a fun way to get started with the book and kind of a guessing game what we think the book is about. So when I present a book to the students in class, I'll say, boys and girls, this is the book we're going to read today. Can you guess what this book might be about? And if they can tell me, the animal on the front cover, well, it looks like it's a kangaroo. Well, it could be a kangaroo. It does look a little bit like a kangaroo, or they may say it looks like a reindeer or a dog. So we know it's about an animal. We see that animal's holding something. Well, let's see if we can find out. On our front cover, we find the title. And then we have the back cover of the book. Is it the same or different? Oh, it looks like that animal's hiding, doesn't it? So that's our back cover. And this is the front cover. The front cover is where we find the name of the book or the title. The title tells us the name of the book. And the title of this book is, and I'm going to touch it so they can understand that this has meaning. This word right here is associated with the word. Llama, llama, red pajama. Do you hear that rhyme? Llama, pajama. Those are rhyming words. Oh, I like how they wrote that word, color word, in the same color, red. Llama, llama, red pajama. Isn't that neat? So that's on our front cover, the title. We can also find the title on the spine of the book. Look at that, llama, llama, red pajama. This is the spine of the book. So we find the title on the front cover and on the spine. Do you know what else we find on the front cover and the spine? The author's name. The author's name is Anna Dewdney. Anna Dewdney is the author. Her name is also on the spine, right here, Dewdney. So the person that wrote the book, their name is on the front cover and on the spine. We call that person the author. Their job was to write the words to the story. But guess what? There's only one name on this book. That means Anna Dewdney not only wrote the words as the author, but she also drew all the pretty pictures. She drew this picture of the llama in his red pajamas. And Anna Dewdney also drew this picture, all the pictures in this book. She's the author and the illustrator. She did both jobs to this book. Sometimes we have two different names. Sometimes we have just one. So our title of the book is Llama, Llama, Red Pajama. So parents, talking about that front cover can take a while, and the back cover, all the parts, and that's okay. And using our higher level thinking, trying to guess what the story might be about by just looking at the pictures on the front and on the back. So parts of the book. Our first activity, new activity this week. Second new activity this week is called Make a Book. Your child is going to be an illustrator this week. What an exciting career opportunity. They are going to illustrate the pages in this book, and the title of this book, we can talk about front and back cover. On the front cover, we can find the title, and the title is I See. And this book was written by Mrs. Igo. Mrs. Igo used to work for the Ready program, and she wrote this book, I See. I See is written by Mrs. Igo. She is the author. Let's look at the back cover. Nothing on that back cover and nothing on the spine, because this is a book that you are going to help create. So we have our title, we have the author, but the illustrator is empty, because boys and girls, you will write your name. Your child is going to write their name under the illustrator. So your child will write their name, or you can write it for them, because they are going to be the illustrator of this book. So when we begin this book, you're going to read this book to your child, and you're going to tell them, I'm going to read you a book today. It does not have any pictures, because you are going to draw them. You are going to be the illustrator of this book. So we're going to just talk about the print first. The first page says, I see the frog. Touch the words as you read them. I see the frog. Go to the next book page. I see the log. What's a log? Some of this is new vocabulary for your child. A log is a big, big stick. You might need to show them a picture, an actual picture of a log if they don't know. So you're going to go ahead and read each page to your child, touching the words as you go. When you're finished reading it, you're going to go back and you're going to let your child be the illustrator. They're going to, now they may not be able to draw a frog like you think a frog should look like, but that's okay. We want them to be the illustrator and we want them to own this book. They are going to be the illustrator, their names on the front cover. So you'll read the page, I see the frog, and you can give them, some help. Say, okay, so what are you going to draw right here? Are you going to draw a cat? Are you going to draw a bird? The words, the print say, I see the frog. So we need to draw a frog. So draw the frog, and then they're going to, on each page, they're going to draw to match the print, just like illustrators do in a real book. I see the log. So on this page, they're going to draw and color a log. Now, if they have a hard time and they don't want to do it, you can draw the log and then they can color it in. But we want them to have as much ownership of this as possible. Now, when they're finished, they're going to have a book that they illustrated. So they can share this with family members. And that's so exciting for them. And they can sit down and they can read the book to the family. I see. Illustrated by Mrs. Igo, or written by Mrs. Igo, and illustrated by your child's name. A fun activity, I see. Another activity this week is called Book Investigator. You can use your magnifying glass that you've made, which might be the easiest thing to do. You can use your pipe cleaner glasses. You can put on that word investigating scavenger hat, something to really make it exciting for this activity. So Book Investigator, we are going to be investigating this book today. So we're going to give that opportunity again to investigate the front cover. And they can look at that front cover using that academic vocabulary. So important to keep repeating that. This is the front cover. What do you find, Mr. and Mrs. Investigator, on the front cover? Do you see any letters that you recognize? Can you find that letter, Investigator, that begins with What else do you see on the front cover? Let them talk about some of the things that they can see. Really take your time. What else do you find on the front cover? I see someone's name. What do we call that person's name on the front cover? Author, that's right. The author is who? What job do they have? Write the words. They have the illustrator. What do illustrators do? They draw the picture. Or you can say it the other way. Can you tell me what an illustrator does? Or who draws the pictures? An illustrator. You can flip it the other way around. Then we can talk about, have them investigate the back cover. Talk about some of this other print. What's up here? What are some of these things for if they ask? Sometimes a picture on the back is the same as the front. Sometimes it's an extension of the story. So it's always fun to look at the front cover and the back cover. And don't forget to investigate the spine of the book. You can talk about familiar letters. Talk about rhyming words if you find them on the cover. So now we're going to take this Book Investigator inside the book to look at the pages. Sometimes it's fun, and I do this quite often when I was teaching, is you go on a picture walk before you even begin to read the story. We just investigate the pictures because the pictures are good clues to what the story is going to be about. So we don't even need to talk about the print. We'll just take a little picture walk. This right here is the title page. You can talk about that. This is our title page. Look, it has the same words, Llama Llama Red Pajama. And it's written and illustrated by Anna Dudney. Let's take a picture walk. And they can use their little investigation tool. Oh, who do we see on here? So look at this picture. What do you think's happening? Ask some question. How are they feeling? What time of day is it here? I like the way the illustrator made that blanket so colorful. And just talk about each page. Just looking at the illustrations. Using their imagination, what these words might be telling us. And when you're finished with your walkthrough of the pictures, we can go back to investigating the story. And you can read the book to your child. And as you read, I want you to be intentional about touching each word. Llama, llama, red pajama, needs a story with his mama. Llama, pajama, mama. Wow. Listen to those rhyming words, and they can investigate that. They can investigate some of the letters. It's all right, parents, instead of just reading a book and getting to the end, to stop as you're reading and talk about the story that they're hearing and what's happening in the pictures, and talking about some of the letters and touching them. Do you see any letters that you recognize? It's okay to do it. Lots of times children will want the same story read over and over again. So it's kind of fun to, even for you to break it up a little bit and do it a little bit differently each time. So each page we're going to investigate. We can look for rhyming words. They can investigate letters. But again, left to right. Baby's hair. Mama llama. Lots of rhyming words in this book. So book investigator. We're investigating the pages, the front cover, the back cover, parts of a book, the beginning of the book, the end of the book. You can talk about what's going on at the beginning of the book. How was the llama feeling? How did the llama feel at the end of the book? What happened in the beginning? What happened in the middle? What do you think is going to happen next? Let your child use some of that higher level thinking in their vocabulary to describe what's going on in this book. Book Investigator, one of our new activities this week. The remaining of the activities we're going to do this week are repeats of what you've already been exposed to. But again, so many of these activities can be taken to the next level or done a little bit differently. My word book, go ahead and continue. We're adding more letters. You might be the majority of the way through, and that's fine. Go back. And instead of just drawing the pictures and talking about them, let your child practice writing some of the words they see on the page. Tracing them or actually copying the letters word for word, letter for letter. So my word book continuation, they're going to have a nice alphabet book when they're finished, filled with pictures that represent each letter of the alphabet. And this is going to be a nice thing for them to own and have and revisit. So my word book is a continuation. Talk about the letters, talk about the pictures that they have on there and why they put them, that they all begin with the same letter, and we can hear that same sound if you name all the objects on each page. So really bring in some of the other concepts that we've been talking about. Again, this book even has a front cover and a back cover. Maybe they can decorate their back cover and write the entire alphabet on the back and practice writing all their letters. So again, they're owning this book as far as the illustrations that are being put in there. My word book, an extension and continuation activity on our platform this week. We are going to continue this week with our pin a letter. You should have a pretty long strip of letters now hanging up somewhere or out so they can work on a flat surface. I've seen some people hang it on a wall and do it that way, a different positioning. Some people do it at a table. Some people do it on the floor. You can do this activity really anywhere. You can take it with you in the car if you want to just work on a series of letters. You can even write your child's name on and do it that way. Change this up a little bit so you can take it with you. But this is a good activity. Again, there is a lot you can do with it as far as the matching. I have it turned over here, so let me take those off. But again, uppercase, lowercase, letter sounds. If your child has mastered all of these things, one of the extensions they talk about is have them think of a word that begins with that letter. If they've mastered or learning to really get a good grasp of the sound that letter makes, you can talk about this letter right here, have them name it, tell you about that letter, and then say, can you think of a word that begins with B? We know that B makes a b sound. Can you think of a word that begins with B? And then you can, take turns thinking of B words, write them down on a piece of paper so they can see all the B's. So a lot of extensions. Again, it's a good tool just for working on that fine motor. You can mix up all the letters, all the little clothespins, put them all in a bag and have them take one out. And you can even, if you've got some competitive kids, I had a lot of competitive students. So we would have a contest to see who could put them on the fastest in the correct order, or set the timer for 30 seconds and see how many they can get on. If you have a competitive child, that's a fun thing. Some kids do not like that at all. And they won't want to play it that way. But it's for those that do, set the timer for 30 seconds and see how many letters they can get done correctly in 30 seconds. Or see how long it takes them to do all of it and see if they can beat their time. So that's an alternative to an extension of this activity. So pin a letter, continuing that activity, change it up. We have some ideas for you on how you can extend that activity. Pin a letter. Another repeat activity this week on your platform is the name bag or name kit. So we have that little manila envelope for you in your supplies that I hope by now you've gone ahead and your child has written their name, or you've done that for them. They can decorate it any way they want. They might want to write their name several times. Again, you're going to have your sentence strip where you've written the name. And then we have a variety of activities that you can put in here to do. We have the popsicle sticks where they're going to match the letters to the name. We have the name puzzle. And then we have when we have the name puzzle that they can go ahead and put together that we did last week, where they go ahead and build the puzzle back together. And again, we want to encourage left to right and do it in order or sequence. So we want to get that first letter of your name first, and then look at that second letter and talk about it. Talk about the letter, talk about the shape, talk about the sound, and do it that way. If they have mastered this, and all of these name building ideas are easy and enjoyable, you can go ahead and make one for their last name. You can make them for other people in their family. They can put together other family members' names and learn to read other members' names in print. You can do other vocabulary words. You can, if they have foods, you can make name bags for favorite foods and make different puzzles with different words. Those are all extensions for this activity. So the name bag activity is a repeat for this week. The letter rainbow is back this week with our uppercase and lowercase. Last week, we talked about putting the letters out here so they can see them all and work that way. I'm going to, again, encourage them to work in order. I had students who would often just work finding the A, finding the B, and we can talk about that independently. Sometimes kids will just take them and they'll pick up a letter and then just match it. But we really want to encourage not just matching letters, but actually identifying the letter and recognizing its symbol and then the associated sound, and then talking about that. Touching and singing the alphabet was one of the activities. We can do that again this week. Again, talking about the sound association with that letter. And we have both uppercase and lowercase. Now, if this is an easy activity for your child and they know their letters and they're working this pretty quickly as far as matching them, really encourage the naming of them and the sound part of it. If they're doing that fairly easily, you can actually put the lowercase in here and have them match the lowercase magnetic letter to the uppercase. And that will be a little bit more difficult for them. So they'll be matching lowercase magnetic letters to the uppercase letter rainbow. And the opposite on this, you would have your lowercase letters out and they'll match them on top of the uppercase letters out and they'll match them on top of the lowercase. So that's another more challenging way to do this activity. Now, we may have some of the older students who really have a good grasp of their letters and they're working on their letter sounds. But if you want just to be doing this activity at the table while you're busy doing something else, and this is easy for them, if you look on the back, we have our alphabet up here as a key, but we're missing them on the rainbow. So then they're going to look at this and have to recognize, okay, that's our A. We start over here, again, left to right. I need to put the letter that comes next. What comes after A? I can use that to help them, but some of them might be able to just in their heads think, okay, A, B. B will be next. Find the B, put it next to the A. What letter comes next? I can use my clue up here. There's A, B. Oh, I'm looking for this letter. What letter is that? So this is a little bit more challenging. We have that both in the uppercase and in the lowercase on the backs of these cards. But start off simple. Again, we want to challenge them, but we don't want them to be frustrated. So there's that balance between making it challenging for them, but we don't want them to become so frustrated that they don't want to continue the activity. We want learning to be fun and engaging and challenging at the same time, but we certainly don't want them to give up and become frustrated. So rainbow letter rainbow this week. Again, this week, we have the Muffin Tin Toss. I'm looking forward to seeing how this worked for you last week and this week. It's a little bit different. See if you change it up a little bit. If you don't have muffin tins, again, you can put the upper and lowercase together as I have it modeled here, or you can write them individually and put those in instead of the two together. Then the child can specifically identify whether they have tossed into uppercase or lowercase. We're working on the letter name. We're working on what that letter looks like as far as describing the formation of it. Straight lines and curves, or just curves. So we talk about letter identification, letter formation, and then that letter sound, talking about what sound. So they can toss into it and tell you, or you can specifically ask them to toss to a specific. I'm thinking of a word that begins with B. I'm thinking of a word that begins with F, and they would toss it to the correct letter. Or once they toss it in, you ask them what letter sound that is. So you can either be specific about, throw it to the uppercase B, try and get it into the lowercase I. You can be specific and have them throw directly, or they throw it and wherever it lands, you ask those questions that way. Again, if you don't have the muffin tin, you can do that on the floor. You can toss other objects. It's really up to you how creative that you want to get. If they're doing the letters pretty easily in the sounds, ask them to think of a word that begins with that letter. You know, after they've thrown it in, can you tell me a word that begins with that letter sound? B. Can you tell me a word that begins with that letter sound? F. Or give them two words. Which one begins with that letter sound? If they throw it into the F and you say, I'm going to tell you two words. Which one begins with that letter sound? Does dog or fish? And I want them to be able to tell you that fish begins with that letter F and the F. So this is our Muffin Tin Toss. Again, it does not have to be in a muffin tin. It can be on the floor. Get creative. I love seeing those creative ideas. So that's it for the activities this week. Our social emotional component is learning how to calm down. The boys and girls in class, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we had a lesson about feelings, and we talked about ways to calm down. I think one of the hardest things, even with your own children or in the classroom, when you have a child that's visibly upset and you want to know what's wrong, but they can't tell you because they can't regulate that emotion. They can't calm down. And we all know, even as adults, learning to regulate our anger and our emotions is a hard thing, even as a grown-up. So for a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, as a young child, learning to regulate and learning how to calm our body down so we can communicate. That's the big thing. We want them to be able to communicate when they're upset. So this week we're talking about ways that we can teach our child to calm down when they're upset so they can communicate to us what they're upset about. So one of the ways that you can do that is teach your child to take a deep breath. When they're upset and they're crying about something or they're mad about something and you want them to talk to you about it, sometimes if they've had a little break and they're still upset, we can tell them to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and see if we can't change that focus from that emotion that's overwhelming them to changing that where they are by that deep breath. Kind of changes their focus from being upset with that deep breath. That's one way to help your child calm down. Another way that seems to work is taking a drink of water. If your child's having a hard time getting their words out and they've taken a few deep breaths and they still can't seem to get calmed down to communicate what's going on, having a drink of water is a way to kind of change that process, that being upset. So a drink of water, swallowing, putting that water changes that whole dynamic, and it gives them an opportunity to be calm enough to tell you what's going on. So a deep breath, maybe getting a drink of water. Some of the others that we brainstormed this last week in class were to count to 10. If they're upset and they're crying, and take a deep breath and count back from 10 or count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hopefully by 5, 6, they've calmed down enough that they can communicate what is upsetting them. The whole goal of learning to self-regulate, recognizing your feeling, like we talked about last week. Okay, I'm feeling that way where I can't talk, I can't tell anyone what's wrong. Either you're hurt or you're angry or something's happened, but they can't tell an adult what exactly is going on. We want them to learn tricks, little ways that they can utilize so they can learn how to get where they can communicate what's going on. So we have a deep breath, a drink of water, and counting. Another way is just to find something else to focus on. A lot of times when we're upset that we can't even see, we can't see. So, let's change activity. Let's look at a book. Let's sit down and find something to take our mind off of what's upsetting and calm enough where you can calm down. Some people just need to take a break. But if that's a lot of times when they're young like that, they just can't get themselves regulated. So these little tools of deep breath, getting a drink of water, and counting, sitting down and getting redirected to something else is a way a child can learn to regulate those emotions that interfere with their ability to communicate. Thank you all for all your hard work. Parents, you're doing an awesome job. Your kids are doing an awesome job in class. They're coming in, they're learning that routine, they're separating easier. They really are surprising me on the pictures on the Facebook page and the videos, the hard work and perseverance, and they're really sticking to it. And really impressed with you parents and all the hard work you're doing. And if you have questions about anything, don't hesitate to ask another parent what's working for them. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm very excited about this program, and we're about halfway through with this first semester. So it's been a lot of fun for me, and I hope you're enjoying it too. Have a great week.